Okay, the fire alarm test has taken place now in the chamber, so we can make a start of the meeting. So, pawb â croeso, good morning everyone and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Environment, Regeneration and Street Scene Services Scrutiny Committee on the 31st of January 2025. I'm Councillor Sean Person, I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. Before we move on, just the usual housekeeping notes. The meeting will be recorded this morning. Usual thing about mobile phones, can you make sure they're on silent during the meeting? I'm just going to check mine now. And for those in the chamber, you can raise your hand to speak, and those on Teams, raise your electronic hand, please. Likewise, for those on Teams, please don't use the chat function to engage in the meeting discussion. Please only keep that for any technical queries for democratic services, please, because we won't be able to keep track of that otherwise. And then just another note for members online who are participating today, to keep your cameras on so you can be seen and heard. I know a couple of members have got reasons why they can't do that, but for everybody else, if you could, please keep your cameras on. In terms of declarations, just a note that we'll be scrutinising item 4A on the Cabinet Forward Work Programme, which is our only substantive agenda item today. So I'll move on now to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? I can't see any. So I'll move on, but as usual, members, if you realise you need to make a declaration during the item, please just raise your hand and we'll make a note of that. That's fine. So agenda item 3 is minutes of the previous meeting. They're on pages 5 to 38 of the agenda pack. Could I have a proposer and a seconder that they're an accurate record of the meeting, please?
I'll propose, Chair.
Proposed by Councillor Rob Woolford.
I'll second.
And seconded by Councillor Rob Wood. Thank you. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I'll take it that these minutes are approved.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, those minutes are approved as accurate.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so we'll move on to part 1 of the meeting, agenda item 4. That's to consider items from the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. So we have our only item of scrutiny today, which is item 4A, the Economic Development CRM System Contract Renewal. That's on pages 39 to 56. I believe we've got Andrew Collins online for this report. Andrew, I'd appreciate if either you or a colleague could just give us a brief run through of this before we go to questions, please.
Happy to run through it, Chair, and pretend I know all about it, but I've invited my colleague Sarah Fowler along because Sarah is the author of the report and she's the council's expert on this matter. So if you're willing, I'm happy to hand over to Sarah. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sarah. I didn't see you were there.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Andrew. So I've just been asked to give us an overall summary of the report. So in March 23, we procured the evolutive system to support us with the delivery of our Business Anchor project, which was funded through UK Government Shared Prosperity Fund. And this was based on our experience of having delivered a high volume of grants during the COVID period. And contacts during that time with economic development officers across Wales who were using this system to support them in the delivery of their activities, and they found it very useful and successful. So we initially procured a contract for 2 years with the option to extend for a further year. However, now this time frame no longer meets our needs in relation to sort of current and new programmes of activity that we're delivering. For example, the Tata Transition Fund grants and the second round of the Shared Prosperity Fund, which will be coming in April. And we understand again that there's the possibility that there will be a further round of funding through the current government's equivalent of the Shared Prosperity Fund from 2026. So at this point in time, we have the opportunity to recontract on a direct award basis for 3 years at the cost as quoted in the report of £30,381 plus VAT. And this cost and the budget for any development work that we need to have undertaken can be funded through our current SPF projects, but we need to get that approved and invoiced and paid for in February. Unfortunately, as the award falls outside agreed variations to the council's contract procedure rules, then we need to bring this report to you to seek your approval to proceed. So I think that's the summary, Chair. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for that. That is really helpful, and yeah, certainly that last point is just useful for me to just remind members why we're scrutinising this today. You know, we do, under the current scrutiny system, have a choice what we do scrutinise, and because it's a departure from the contract procedure rules, as a general rule, I always think it's a good thing for us to cast our eye over those things just to make sure that we're not deviating too far and in an unreasonable manner. And I know I can speak for members just from pre-brief that I know there's not any overriding concerns about this one, but there are a few questions. But it's just worth us remembering why we're doing that, because it is good practice for us to make sure that any deviations from our standard procedures are adequately scrutinised. I've got a few indications from pre-briefing. I'm just going to get my list up here. There are a couple just in relation to the report itself, not necessarily in terms of the substantive content of it, but in terms of how the report's written and its understanding. So I'm going to go to those members now, just to make those points. Some of those are more general points that I think maybe we need to take away to Democratic Services, but I'll allow members to make those points. So I'll go to Councillor Carol Clement-Williams first, just to bring that up. Carol?
Thanks, Chair. I know Tom did explain a little bit about why it's not in there, but on the hang on, I'm losing my page now. At the beginning of the report, where it's got the financial impact, it says not applicable. So I read the report, and all the way through it, it's probably with my finance head on as well. I'm wondering how much is this going to cost? Can we afford it and all that? I know that the financial information is on page 40 something. Was it 40? 46? No, 48, 49. But it really would have been helpful for me reading the report if it had said the cost will be covered by the programme and not to the council, something like that, because the whole time I'm reading the rest of the report, I'm slightly in the back of my mind the whole time is I want to see the cost straight away. So I think that
Carl, I don't know if you can hear us, but you've frozen our end now. What I'm going to, just in terms of Carol's question there, I think there is an issue, I think, in terms of the covering report. So there's the substantive report that we have today over the contract, and then there's a really brief sort of 2 or 3 page covering report for scrutiny, and that lists all the sort of impacts as kind of nothing. And I think that's perhaps a little bit confusing, and I think that's just a bit of feedback that I think needs to just be looked at corporately. Carol, are you back with us now?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can now. You froze just towards the end of your point and your question, Carol.
Okay. I think you've summed it up rather nicely. I leave my camera off. I was having these problems yesterday. Kept getting kicked out of meetings.
No problem. And I just on the similar note, I'm just going to go to Councillor Gareth Rice as well, who I believe's online.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Gareth. I can see you now. I know you've got a similar point just in terms of the some of the content and the terms of the report.
Right, thank you, Chair. It was not necessarily the recommendation itself, but through the report, I was looking at on page 46, where the graph shows the grant funding and where they've all gone. I'm not sure if the members were informed of what these grants were, but it would be nice as a new member to see where these grants were granted who to. I did say just to individual awards, but thinking on it later, I thought it'd be nice if we had a breakdown of all the grants, or available to us if we needed, to share best practice across the board. So you could have an idea from someone else. That'd be good if we can approach somebody then in our award. They say, look, this is what's happened elsewhere, and they say share best practice across the borough. Not necessarily in this report, but it would be nice to have that information if possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gareth. I know just another point I'll just flag up. I know yourself and other members did mention around ensuring we have got a glossary of terms as well, just from some of these reports. But I think one of the benefits, of course, of having one of these systems is that officers can pull out that data, which is great. So I don't know if Andrew or Sarah want to respond to any of those before I go on to any other questions or comments from members.
Yeah, appreciate your comments, thank you. And in terms of the grant fund, the SPF project is currently being closed down. We have to do that by the end of March, but we will certainly be looking to do a report on the activity, and we can definitely do something for you to report to members on the grant scheme. And we are, as you rightly say, we are able to drill down by ward, so you can see what's been awarded by ward as well.
Okay. If I could come back, it was that'd be great at the end of it. But if there's grants awarded whilst it's still open, then if we could find that out. So again, we could have other people in our awards looking to do the same thing, but not sure which way to go forward. Or I think you know what I mean.
Yes.
Through the glossary, it was follow up from what Carol, I'm sure, would have brought up. There's a lot of abbreviations to this, and although at the very first time the abbreviation it does show where it's come from, further on down the report, if you've forgotten what it is, if there's 9 or 10 abbreviations, you've got to go back to find out what it was. So just an idea, not from this report, but across the board everywhere. There's have a glossary at the end, so we can just instant referral to see what these abbreviations are. And that was a follow-up from Carol. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Tom just wants to come in on this one briefly.
Yeah, thank you, members, for your feedback on the report. As we sort of briefly mentioned in pre-brief, in a scenario like this where we get sort of a fully formed cabinet report, I or other Democratic Service officers add the scrutiny cover report on top of it, which obviously doesn't contain a lot of information because it's sort of directing you to the report, the cabinet report itself, and to sort of make a decision on the recommendations within it. So a lot of those boxes we sort of leave blank, but I do take your point. If you're looking for that information straight away, it's the first thing you read, and then you're having to go through the cabinet report to find it. So I'll take that feedback back, because we are obviously at the moment sort of looking at the whole scrutiny process and everything, and obviously we're doing our annual surveys with you all. So we're going to look at that, and also with the glossary of terms, etc. I know there is work that we could do on sort of seeing if we can change maybe the sort of the template that officers are given when they are producing reports for scrutiny. So I can feed that back internally through Democratic Services and see what we can do with that. So I appreciate your comments, and if you have anything additionally, if you want to send them to me or anyone else in Democratic Services, we can take those on board.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. I can see Councillor Jeremy Hurley has got his hand up. Jeremy, do you want to come in at this point?
Thanks, Chair. It's just a thank you to the team. One, for realising that the time that can be spent, just analysing documentation, whereas this almost sounds like an automatic process, helping people apply for the grants quickly, and then obviously speeding up the process of getting the grants out as well, which they've done a remarkable job on. So big thanks to all the team involved in that. It's obviously a no-brainer to continue on with the process. On Councillor Rice's question, a great question, and thanks, Gareth. If we can realise what's going out, perhaps we can look in our wards for similar instances, and with the additional SPF funding come in, now is the time probably to start looking and helping residents and business within our wards. To be fair to the team, I think we've had multiple SPF updates in seminars, so the information they've given us on all the aspects of the SPF funding, how it's been spent, what's been provided has been brilliant. So we've had multiple seminars there. And also to the media team, where they've been issuing, as the projects have been reaching completion, they've been, it's been coming out with our media notices. And for instance, we recently had the one of the completion of the railway in Abdillais, which is a great project again. And that's gone out, and I can see how much, you know, how much good feedback we've had from residents and public. You know, another great building regenerated and come into use. Another great link in that corridor for the you know, the Knoll to the Neath pathway there. Then, so again, just a big thanks to all the team involved. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. And I think it's worth noting, isn't it? Just touching on what you and Gareth have said. Often other businesses get inspired, don't they, by seeing these projects, and I think that's a really important part of this, is people to understand that there is support there is funding there. We might not always know exactly when it's coming and how long for, but the comms is really important, whether that's through our comms team, through members, just to make sure all of our businesses understand what opportunities are there. And I think you've touched upon some of the work that's happened already, Jeremy, but I think Gareth's specific point is, well, let's make sure members are directly and fully briefed on what's going on in their wards. And I think, you know, based on what's happened so far, that seems like an achievable task. And the other point, I suppose, is we've had a lot of discussion on budget, haven't we, recently, and making sure all our teams are working as efficiently as they can. And we know how much pressure the economic development team is under, as well as other parts of the council. And if this is allowing them to work efficiently and deal with all of that, all of those inquiries and all those projects, then it's a really good thing, isn't it, that we're allowing that to happen. I'm going to bring in Carol, who's indicated, and then Councillor Bob Wolford, I think you indicated in pre-brief as well. Carol?
Sorry, yeah, I kind of got thrown then because you lost me, and I forgot to say, it is a discussion I was having yesterday with somebody. Sometimes it feels like we're just criticising, but, you know, it's a fabulous report. I think it's well worth the money, which was a lot less than I thought it was going to cost. And thank Sarah and the team for all the work that they've put in. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Bob?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Really to echo what Jeremy and Carol said, I said in pre-brief, looking at this, it's Stonewaller really, it's really needed. It's well put together, and I'm pleased at the transparency that we've been able to see that what's going on, and also because it's just slightly outside of the usual procurement, that we're able to discuss it. So thank you, team, for everything you've done.
Thanks, both. I can see Jeremy's got his hand back up. Jeremy, did you want to come back in?
Right, yes, please, Chair. Apologies. It was just another added thing is, obviously, we know that there's a certainty with the future funding. So the most important thing for members to pass on to residents and businesses is plans in place. And almost, if it's in place, they can literally, the team is so well sorted. If it's a good plan, and they'll help them prepare it. But if they've got it in place, it's literally come in for the grant. And then these grants were issued within, in some instances, I've seen them done in a turnaround of weeks. So the real important thing is talk to the businesses or any other third sector that we've got any wards, and just make them aware of what's there and try and get them put the plans in place or start talking to the business team and the SPF team already or straight away. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think that's some sound advice there for members. Councillor Rosin Davis, Ros?
I did ask in the seminar that we had regarding funding. We wanted to know how much funding was across the area and in wards across the county borough, but we haven't received any information.
Okay, Ros, I don't know whether Andrew or Sarah wanted to just pick up, and I think Sarah may have sort of indicated that perhaps there's going to be a report at the end of the programme, but I don't know if officers want to...
Yes, we're still currently processing a number of claims and chasing them down to try and get the money out the door so that we don't have to return anything. Share. So it's still a very fluid situation. Hopefully when it comes to an end, then we'll have certainty, and then perhaps it would be the best time to report on the final outcomes. But we take on board the comments of Councillor Rice and Councillor Hurley and Clement Williams, and we will obviously get as much information out there to the businesses, especially when the next round comes through. Now we'll be fully prepared, and we've also got a database now for all our town centre businesses, so we can access them directly. So that'll be 400 businesses that we can get the information straight to as well.
Is that okay, Ros? Ti ar mute, Ros.
Oh. Yes, that's fine. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other indications from members on this one, and it's been an overall lots of positive comments, which I think, as some members have said, often the scrutinies can be a bit critical, but sometimes it is useful, I think, for the cabinet and officers to just have an affirmation that things are on the right track and members are happy and content. And I think today's maybe a rare example of that, actually, where that is the case, which is quite nice. And it is always, as we said, it's always worth us looking at these items, and hopefully it's provided a bit of comfort to officers and cabinet members on this particular topic. So I'll draw us to page 51 of the agenda pack, and the recommendations are contained there. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for those recommendations, please?
I propose, Chair.
Proposed by Councillor Karen Clow-Williams.
I'll second then, Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Bob Wilford in the chamber. Thank you. Okay, so members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I will take it that this recommendation is approved.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, this recommendation has been approved.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So I'll just move us forward with the agenda. We have no items from our own forward work programme on today's meeting agenda, and no performance monitoring items either. So that takes us to part 4, item 7, which is the Cabinet and Scrutiny Forward Work Programme item. I don't know if, Tom, have you got anything to report to members in terms of changes to the Forward Work Programme?
So we obviously had a brief run through in pre-briefing about some of the changes, and obviously we've got quite a settled forward work programme now. And I did mention that on the Cabinet Forward Work Programme that you would have seen, the report in regards to waste has moved, and obviously today we would have had the safari collections, but that's been pushed back, which we should have once they finalise the policy on that. One potential addition that we may have is a report on Japanese knotweed. It wasn't something we were initially going to scrutinise, as the policy looked as though it was going to stay the same, although we've been advised that there may be a change to it. So we're just kind of waiting on further feedback on that. If it does change, then I think the sort of view is that it might be worth scrutinising, as obviously it's a departure from what you've looked at previously. If that is the case, then the initial idea is that we would be scrutinising that potentially at the 14th of March scrutiny meeting. But obviously I'll keep you updated, and I'll have to have discussions with the chair and officers in regards to that. One other thing to flag to members is that there are some urgent items being added as a supplement today for the cabinet for the cabinet meeting on the 5th of February, which would be subject to 3-day implementation. So those are ones that you may want to keep an eye out for. I know we'll be in discussion with the chair as well, in case members want to look at that. And those would be in relation to acquisition of land in Harbourside, the Moose Hall in Neath, and Pont Neath Vechen. But as of yet, I haven't seen the reports, but we'll flag those to you as soon as that's been published. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for flagging those with members. As Tom said on the Japanese knotweed item, I'll have a look at that report, and if it is a substantial departure or a departure from the policy that's significant, then we'll scrutinise it. Otherwise, if it's a continuation of the existing policy, I don't think it's worth us looking at it again. And yeah, members, just keep an eye on ModGov today to look at those reports coming to Cabinet. We'll have 2 options on those. We can potentially do some post scrutiny on them, Or as Tom has said, there is a call-in period for most cabinet items. I don't usually anticipate us needing to do that, but it's just a reminder that does exist. I can see Andrew Collins has popped his hand up. I know Andrew might have some information on these reports as one of the officers. So I don't know if you have anything to add there, Andrew.
Just update you, Chair, please. The Moose Hall has been postponed until a later date. So I have informed colleagues in Democratic Services, Tom, and the two reports, the acquisition of land at Pontyfechen and the acquisition of land at Harbourside, will hopefully be distributed this afternoon.
Okay, thank you for that update, Andrew. So yeah, just to note, members, have a look at those reports when they come through. If you've got any concerns or queries, please let me know, and we can go from there. We've got Councillor Rob Wood in the chamber.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, if you'll indulge me on the forward work programme, I'm just a little bit concerned, and I know this one could be a bit cross-directed, that we've had no update concerning the Wild Fox Resort. And because it will cross regen and environment, I think it's very important that this committee should at least have a matter for information on it, just to say exactly where we are. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Rob. That's a really good point. I'll pick that up with Dem Services. I'm not sure if it is being reported to any other committee. We'll at least endeavour to get an update to members one way or another, but I think we'll have some conversations in the background to see what form that needs to take. But that's a really good point, because that's been a really significant project, isn't it? And it does seem to have gone a little quiet. Are there any other comments from members on this item? I can't see any. Again, as always, this is a live and rolling document, the forward work programme. You don't need to wait for the meeting to raise any items with me. You can contact me anytime if you've just had a random thought or an idea or a concern on anything, and we can discuss it and see if we can come up with a plan to bring that to scrutiny. So just a reminder to members on that one. Okay, so there's no other indications. So item 8 is urgent items, and I have no urgent items today. And that brings us to the end of business for today's meeting. It is a quieter meeting today, but members will note we've got some other business coming up next month. We've got a few meetings and some joint meetings too to keep us all busy. But diolch yn fawr, thank you very much for members and officers' contributions this morning. It's very much appreciated. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.